Guitar Champion, the best lick from the newest Dream Theater record is not a guitar lick, it's actually a keyboard lick. And I'm, to be honest, asked myself, guitar players, they don't play licks like this anymore, or they should play licks like this a little bit more often. We can solve that problem. Let's find out more about this lick. Here we go. Hey Guitar Champion, what's going on? I'm Jesper Hornbach back from my practice dojo and welcome to today's video. The lick that I have here is from the piano solo section of the 𝙤𝙤𝙢𝙚 from the newest Dream Theater record, a record that I absolutely love. I think it's, I made a whole review about it. You can watch it right here. But yeah, to be honest, it's a really great Dream Theater record. And in the 𝙤𝙤𝙢𝙚, the longest song and the big epic of that record, there's a really cool piano solo, you know, inspired by Latin piano players like Michael Ciano or Michael Petrucciano. A really great solo by 𝙤𝙤𝙢𝙚. And after I've listened the first time to the lick that I've just played, I had exactly this reaction. I instantly knew what it was, because I know that distinguished sound from studying jazz guitar and being in the jazz university. It's a tritone substitution. What is a tritone substitution, you might ask? You will find out in today's video, and especially how we are going to use it in our next solo and to spice up our solo. Because using substitutions to play outside is a really cool trick to spice up your solos. And jazz piano players and jazz guitar players back from the 50s, from the 60s, people like Tal Farlow, Wes Montgomery, of course, Joe Pass, Pat Martino, they all have been using these kind of licks in the past. And I don't know, I have the feeling they kind of went a little bit forgotten because of the next generation of guitar players, mostly, and I'm guilty of that as well, mostly thinking in scales. Yes, of course, chord substitution is not a foreign word for modern guitar players, but they are not necessarily using substitutions to build an outside kind of sound. So first, what is a substitution? A substitution is, I will now try to make it short. You can imagine it like this. You have a chord, but you're not outlining that chord, for example, with an arpeggio. Instead of playing that chord as an arpeggio, you're playing a different chord as an arpeggio, and by that you're substituting one chord with the other. Well, and substituting is maybe a little bit of an irritating word. The substitution technique can be, of course, as well coming from the arrangement kind of technique, where you really change one chord to the other chord, but by stacking these chords together, because you as the lead guitar player, you are changing that chord, but for example, the piano in the background, the bassist or the other guitar player, they are not changing their chord, they're still on that same old chord, and by stacking up these kind of chords, you create a new sound. I will give you an example. Let's imagine, for example, we have a jam together and I'm the rhythm guitar player and I play an E minor chord. And now, of course, as a solo guitarist, you can outline over that an E minor triad or an E minor arpeggio. But you can also play over that, for example, G major triad. Now we have two triads lapping over each other. We have E minor, which has the notes E, G, and B. And we have the G major triad, which consists out of the notes G, B, and D. So the G and the B, they exist in both chords. We have them in E minor and in G major triad, but not the D. Now, by adding the D with that G minor triad, we create an E minor 7 sound. It's still E as the root note, because the rhythm guitar player is defining what the root note is, or the bass player or the piano in the background. We solo guitar players, we nearly never define what actually the root note is. It's all the backing band. We are slaves to the backing band, musically speaking. So now, but we can expand this. For example, you can play G major 7. And you can also get the F sharp, and by that you can create an E minor 7/9 sound. You could play over that E, C major 7. And then you create an E minor 7 minor 6 sound. So it is really interesting to see what kind of sounds do I get when I substitute a specific chord over that sound. And I recommend to experiment with these kind of things a little bit. Just take yourself a pad or record yourself like just simply an E minor triad or E minor chord strummed, and then play over it in G major 7 arpeggio, C major 7 arpeggio. You could do D7 arpeggio, or as a little really great spice, play an F sharp minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio over E. And you can create so many really cool sounds by just using these arpeggio. So we have a lot of possibilities to form a new and interesting kind of sound, but what a lot of guitar players are doing, they are not necessarily going outside of the scale, they are still in the scale. When I play in G major 7 over E minor, I'm still in the E minor scale. When I play C major 7 over E minor, I'm still in the E minor scale. Some people may play C sharp minor 7 flat 5, like Marty Friedman is doing in Symphony of Destruction, to create a Dorian kind of vibe, now working with modes, but it's still more kind of an inside feeling. It has not that outside, ooh yeah, kind of vibe and face that you're going to do when you hear something outside. No, we are going into the territory of the outside playing right now. So the lick that we have is in A Phrygian dominant, so in a major scale, or in the scale with a major third in it, because A Phrygian dominant has the notes A, B flat, C sharp. So we have the C sharp, the major third of A, and the chord that is underneath that Phrygian dominant kind of vibe is A major in this kind of aspect. Now, you could play around with the A Phrygian dominant scale, you can get your Yngwie licks, your Paul Gilbert licks, your Petrucci licks, been there, done that. But you could also do what Rudess is doing, because in that lick, he's playing A major, and then he's adding E flat major, E flat major. That's the diminished fifths. That's the major chord of the diminished fifths. And I absolutely love these kind of chords, because this one is also a major chord. And you know, when you are mixing, you know, your root note, your root chord, and you're adding some interesting modal interchange kind of major chords, like for example the major chord on the flat 5, you get a really great spacey kind of vibe and sound. Let's listen to that, only the chords. So we have, for example, A major, and then we're adding to that E flat major. I call these chords the Star Trek chords or the Star Wars chords, because they really remind me of sci-fi, like Star Wars, like Star Trek. And we have more kind of these modal interchange kind of really interesting chords. We could do, for example, a chord progression where we have A major and then the major chord on the minor third, so on C. We can do A major and F major, for example. So what I like to do, for example, is to take notes that are actually in the minor scale, like for example C and F, and adding them as a major chord. There's a big kind of theory system behind that it would be a little bit overwhelming to explain right now in this video. But basically, I highly encourage to, when you have these kind of situations, to just, you know, simply try out taking one major chord and adding another major chord after that, and try out sounds now it feels for you, and then and after you understood that sound, try to understand the theory by analyzing the intervals relevant to our tonic A. Let's do this again with E flat major. So A, of course, we have A, C sharp, and E. In E flat major, we have E flat, we have the G, and we have the B flat. So the notes that we are adding is the flat 5, the minor third, and the minor 9. So when we're putting this as a scale together, it doesn't make sense. I've tried it in the past. Seeing these kind of things as scales is ruining a lot of things. But when we're putting everything together, we get a scale like this. actually a scale, it's a half-tone whole tone scale. But, you know, just playing the scale does not really representing the sound of. It's just good to know that we have these notes in the scale. But anyways, more important is to see the sound as the arpeggios, because then you have the distinguished and individual sound of the triads. But it's not only the chords, it's also how he builds up that line. Rhythmically speaking, it's not ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's how it sounded when I tried to experiment with those chords, is so there's an articulation, there's a rhythmical syncopation, there's a shift in that. And that's the next thing that I highly recommend to experiment with. Not playing everything as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Trying to spice up a bar. We have 16 notes in a bar. We can do 5, 5, 6, like he's doing here in that pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can do all kinds of variation and combination, and by that you're shifting your accent from your line and it sounds so much more interesting immediately. Alright, let's check out the lick from Jordan that we're using here. We're starting off with A major, resolving to the G, to the major third of E flat. And after these 5 notes, we're going to another 5-note phrase. Now this time, really the E flat major arpeggio, starting on the major third. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have a 6-note phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With a little trill in that. And by that 5, 5, 6, we have 60 notes. So hell yeah, a full bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're playing the same thing an octave lower. It goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. In that lick, we're using the sweeping technique. And if you have problems with the sweep technique, or you never really got into the sweep technique, I highly recommend to you to check out the ZEN of Sweeping, my big online masterclass about sweeping, wherein with more than 15 etudes, I show you how to get from sweep noob to sweep master, from 3-string sweeps to 8-string sweeps. 15 fun musical etudes that shows you how you can use this sweeping technique in your next song. And of course, substitutions is also a topic there. So I highly recommend to check the link in the description box, and you can get the ZEN of Sweeping 50% off when you buy the ZEN of Speedpicking, my big online masterclass about speed picking. So now the question is, can we do this kind of concepts also in minor? But of course we can do this with minor as well. We can do, for example, as well A minor and C minor, something that players like Jason Becker, Luca Turilli, all these new classical guys, for example, really like to do. Or as well, here seeing we have an A minor scale, taking a note that would be from the A major scale, like C sharp, playing that as minor. A minor, C sharp minor, it had really cool and interesting sound. The thing is, the sound of outside notes are like a punch in your face. They have to be. That's the purpose of it. Important is how you resolve it, that you find a way back to one of the triad notes of our tonic, because there you are always safe. In the best case, even more the root note, because that's our home base. So when you're experimenting with that, I highly recommend to be careful with that, because yeah, it can sound really weird and really strange in the beginning, but when you're doing it in the right way, you can create a really interesting sound that not so many guitar players are doing anymore. And the density of notes is also really important. These kind of sounds, they're more like a cluster, and they should be used like a cluster. It's not a lick that you should play slow. It's something that you have to play fast, so that the sound appears quite short and then goes back again, and then outside and inside, outside, inside. I really like that going out, going in, going out, going in of that kind of lick. And I even did this, for example, with 12-tone music. You know 12-tone from Arnold Schoenberg, one of the famous composers from the 20th century. He made like a rule, okay, you're not allowed to have a tonal center, and you're not allowed to repeat a note before you haven't played every note, every 12 note in our system. And I've created, for example, the substitution licks based on triads to have a really cool 12-tone outside lick for your next metal solo. If you want to have some more cool substitution licks and arpeggios, then check out the ZEN of Shred, my Patreon Academy, because there tomorrow I'm going to upload some additional licks for this video. Link is as always in the description box. For $5 per month you can be part of that cool community and can support me in a really easy and really supportive way. And be curious and have a lot of fun, experiment around with substitutions. I can highly recommend it. Really great way to create some really interesting sweeping sounds. Alright, Guitar Champion, so much for today's video. I hope you liked this little video. I hope I'm going to see you in my next video. Of course, subscribe to this channel if you want to have more shred education. Cheers and power your progress. Bye.